Hey Wargamers, last week I put out the first video in my 2019 Tau Codex update series looking at crisis suits, and in response to that video I got a bunch of questions, and some of those questions are things that pop up time and time again on various online platforms, forums, Facebook, whatever, and so I want to take a moment to kind of address all of those questions in one video so that we can get them out of the way. They're going to be useful not only for you if you're just starting out with Tau, but also in contextualizing what I say in the other videos of this series. So on that note, the next video in the series will be on drones, both as tactical drone units and as accompanying units for various infantry and battlesuit units. So we will talk about both those contexts in the next video, which we'll post on Thursday. All right, so one of the first questions I get is, which weapons can a crisis suit actually take? Now, I can see this actually being a pretty confusing question, especially if you're just coming to the Codex with open mind, or you haven't played Tau before, or any of those things. It can actually be very confusing the way that the Codex is stated. There's lots of ranged weapons in the Codex, and they're all, very appealing to a certain extent. So I can understand why someone might want to put a heavy rail rifle on a crisis suit at first glance. Unfortunately, you can't actually do that. In fact, the list of weapons that you can put on a crisis suit is actually quite small. It's on page 89 of the Codex. That list includes the air-bursting fragmentation projector, burst cannon, cyclic ion blaster, flamer, fusion blaster, missile pod, and plasma rifle. It also notes that the cyclic ion blaster cannot be placed on a Cold Star battlesuit. And so while it might be very tempting to put rail rifles on a crisis suit, unfortunately we can't do that. The same thing for commanders of any variety as well. So neither commanders or crisis suits can take any weapons except for the ones present on that list. Now, that brings me to my next question, which is, how do you actually get cyclic ion blasters? We talk about cyclic ion blasters being a fantastic weapon for crisis suits, but how do you actually do that? They're not present in the crisis suit kit. Well, there's a little bit of history to that answer, and it goes back to the original commander kit. That wasn't just a normal crisis suit. The actual upgrade kit for commanders way back when included both an air-bursting fragmentation projector and a cyclic ion blaster, and that's because those weapons were new additions and were experimental weapons. They were things that you could only bring one of or bring a couple of in your army, and so there's a history there of those weapons being associated with the commander kit. You see that in that original kit, in the Fine Cast kit, and now in the current Enforcer and Cold Star kit. Those are the two weapons that are provided exclusively in that kit. So if you're looking to get a GW official cyclic ion blaster or air-bursting fragmentation projector, the answer is you have to get them out of the commander kit, unfortunately. However, there's lots of different options for you. Of course, you can go to things like eBay or Amazon and buy those bits individually. You could alternatively turn the tables, buy a bunch of commander kits, pull out the bits, and then sell those commander kits. I wouldn't recommend that, but it's an option. And then you have third-party options. So things like Red Dog Minis makes a fantastic cyclic ion blaster alternative sculpt. I have many of them. People use things like Shapeways to kind of create their own 3D printed bits for this. And then, of course, you could also, make your own at home kind of thing. So there's lots of options, although most people resort to either eBay or the third-party market for producing their cyclic ion blasters. The final question is, how do I calculate points efficiency? This is something that's actually important both for the crisis video and pretty much every other video on this channel, whether we're talking about this update or not. I spend a lot of time talking about point efficiency, and I want to be sure that you guys understand where I'm coming from with that calculation. By point efficiency, I mean the average amount of damage we can expect a unit to do to some target based on the number of points we paid for that unit. So it's damage output over total cost of that unit. I don't calculate it at the weapon level, I calculate it at the model or unit level so that we have a comprehensive understanding of how much damage we're actually getting for the amount we paid. If we did that just at the weapon level, we'd be ignoring a lot of the investment that we make in the base model. So, for example, in the crisis suit, we'd be ignoring the entire cost of the crisis suit itself and just looking at the weapons. That's not a relevant metric, really. Instead, we're more curious about how a crisis suit full of fusion blasters is going to compare to another crisis suit or some other unit. And so that's the calculation that I'm doing. Notably, this doesn't include things that are non-offensive. So it doesn't take into account things like maneuverability, durability, special rules, anything like that. And those don't have a direct math hammer equivalent in this calculation. And so they're not accounted for in the calculation of offensive point efficiency that I often talk about. Now, I do this using a spreadsheet that I downloaded from the 3++ website. They're a fantastic website that do a lot of Tau tactics, analyses, things like this. And they produced this spreadsheet that essentially calculates the number of wounds that I can expect any given weapon to produce against a variety of targets. So this is a spreadsheet. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a bunch of modifiers like the ballistic skill and rapid fire modifier, moving with a heavy weapon, things like that. Down below are a variety of target profiles. And then on the left, we have the different weapons. And then in the center, we have the actual number of wounds we can expect that weapon to do to that target. So that's where I come in. I take the value given to me by that spreadsheet, add all the weapons of a unit together, and then divide it by the total cost of that unit. And that gives me points efficiency. I do this at the unit level or at the model level, and it allows me to compare different options. So here I have compared things like a crisis suit with 3 missile pods or a crisis suit with 3 fusion blasters. And I can see on average how many wounds I am dealing against a variety of targets per point invested in that model. This is what allows me to say that something is more or less efficient than something else, and allows me to compare at the model or unit scale as opposed to just looking at certain weapons. It also is the basis for things like me saying that fusion blasters are more efficient than cyclic ion blasters in the absence of invulnerable save. We can see here that on average, we're getting more wounds out of a fusion blaster than some of our other options. Additionally, that's what allows me to say that broadsides are extremely point efficient compared to a lot of other options. So it's a framework that I use to analyze the offensive capabilities of different units. So hopefully that clears things up, addressed where you get cyclic ion blasters from, what weapons crisis suits can take, and how I calculate points efficiency. Those are things that come up pretty often. So, like I said, the next video in the series will be focusing on drones. Again, we'll be using that same spreadsheet to do calculations there, and pretty much every other video on this channel. That's the basis for my comparisons. All right, so be back here on Thursday for that drone video, and as always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming. Hey everyone, this video is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Special thanks to Shifty, Nick Steele, Tao Oswell, Scott Heater, Jared Egler, Jake Johnson, Stephen Cohen, Scott J. Smith, Eric Jackson, Benjamin, Chris Kessler, RP, Julian Peck, Peter Benjamin Parker, Andy M. Young, and Giovanni DiMaggio.